back to the Back in Time podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Autry, joined as always by my co-host, JD. JD, you're looking fresh. You're looking clean. How are we doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm looking forward to tonight's episode, which is a little bit of a different spin on what we normally do, so I'm a little nervous.
Oh, I was muted. I said, why do you think it's a different spin?
I was waiting for a response. I was like, did Kyle freeze up there? Because I'll be leading tonight's discussion, and Kyle will be doing the color commentary.
Oh, you actually did notes?
Yeah.
I thought you weren't doing them. I did notes all day long.
Did you really?
Yes.
Well, I definitely did the notes. I did them this afternoon.
Well, when I talked to you, you were like, well, I haven't even watched it yet. And that was yesterday. So I was like, oh, he bailed on the notes. I guess I'll step in and do them. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I will put mine down.
Okay, well, I don't have clips in my notes.
Okay.
So if you want to insert clips, the clips that you pulled, and we can do those whenever and wherever you want.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So I'll just I'll kind of follow along, and I'll let you know where we'll put in clips, and we'll just edit it in.
That's perfect. Yeah. No, I definitely did the notes as per our discussion.
Interesting. Good man. Now, we are joined by a special guest tonight. If you guys are watching on Skype, or watching on YouTube, I should say, you already see him on your screen. He is the host of the Terrible Terror podcast. Brian, welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm ready to talk about one of the best movie soundtracks in the world. That's all we're going to talk about, right?
I think so. I didn't do the notes, but I assume JD is all over it.
I mean, there's not much else, right?
I don't know. We'll find out. I mean, the music once the music hits at the end of this movie, it's just a fantastic ride.
That's right. Can't wait to get kissed by a rose from a grave.
Kissed by a rose from... Yeah, so good, man. I can't wait. We're excited. So before we jump into the episode real quick, just want to plug the podcast here. So, of course, you can follow Brian on Twitter, T_T_podcast. He is part of the SIP network. And then also, I don't know if you host or co-host the It Be Like That podcast, but tell the audience a little bit about your show and where they can listen to you here, Brian.
Sure. So It Be Like That podcast, I am actually co-host with super guest Patrick, and you've probably heard him a bunch here. So that's our kind of little podcast. It's where we kind of started doing everything together quite a long time ago. And that one, we've kind of switched over to doing it both as a regular podcast and a live stream every other Saturday. So there'll be one, I believe, the same weekend that this is released. We stream it over there on YouTube. Just basically go through the podcast that we normally do. But you can find that on all the regular platforms. And then Terrible Terror podcast is the one I do by myself. You guys have been on a couple of times. And I still owe Kyle and Justin the ability to do Starship Troopers with me. So we're going to be doing that at some point. But that one, it's all about just kind of horror movies in general and bad stuff, good stuff. It's just, and then it also goes off into random things like random sci-fi or random comedies. So it's a lot of fun.
If I could plug your show for a second, I recently listened to your Stay Tuned episode because I actually love that movie. And that was a really fun episode that you did. So I would highly recommend you guys check out the Stay Tuned episode.
Oh, that was one of the most fun ones I've done in a while, just because it's so... I hadn't seen that movie in forever, and it's definitely like a sign of the times.
I'll plug it in. Sorry. My son came in to drop off his iPad for me so I can plug it in. Parts of being a father, I guess. And yeah, but that's a really fun episode. And then, of course, we're all part of the SIP Network podcast group, and everybody should check out all those amazing podcasts, and you can find everything over at sipnet.us, and all the links are right there for you. And of course, just subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, And then follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Back in Time Pod. So other than that, JD, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. I'm going to take a back seat and take the wheel and steer, my friend.
All right. So as we hobbled our way through, I'm doing Kyle's role today because he's chugging a Gatorade. He told me he was too lazy to do the notes, and then he went and did the notes anyway. So I'm a little TO'd at you, a little PO'd. But let's kick it off. Who's ready to talk some Batman?
Ooh, me.
Pick me.
Me.
Oh, the original?
Right over here.
That'd be awesome.
We've done it in our archive.
Oh, yeah. Episode 2. All
right, so we open with Batman gearing up. He walks to the Batmobile, and we get the first quip from Alfred. We get a joke like right off the bat. And we move to a crowded street, and we get a glimpse of Two-Face played by Tommy Lee Jones. I personally think he's too good of a role of an actor for this role, but what are your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. And I remember when I first saw this way back, I think I really enjoyed the role. This time, I think that he was just trying to do a little too much. But I also think that's kind of a Schumacher, like bending him in that specific direction.
Yeah. No, totally agreed. From there, the hostage situation heats up, and we're introduced to the beautiful Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman. And Kyle, I know you had her poster hanging up on your wall.
I might have had her poster as a kid. I'm not going to lie about that. And I thought she was okay as Chase Meridian. I think as we go on, we'll talk a little bit more about her character. But it definitely felt like a storyline that just like stops and starts and never really, like, it just doesn't go anywhere for me throughout
it's
the
about
movie.
The same as Val Kilmer's acting.
We will get into that, don't you worry.
Poor Val Kilmer, taking the brunt already.
Jeez. All right, so Two-Face kicks things up a notch and he lures Batman into a bat trap. Of course, things don't go Two-Face's way. Batman foils the trap by putting a bat beat down on the goons. Making his way through the safe to the security guard, we learn the true nature of Two-Face's plan, and Batman's captured. And there's boiling acid. Thankfully, Batman has all the right tools to bat save the day and get the squirrely security guard through and out safely, and continues to chase Two-Face. Despite a valiant effort, Two-Face escapes. And that's kind of like our opening number and our introduction to Batman Forever and what we can see and what we can expect. So I want to hear your thoughts, Brian, from an intro perspective and how it compares to other Batman movies.
So I think right away when we're trying, because at this time we're comparing this to the Tim Burton stuff. You know, we came off of Batman Returns, which is one of my favorite Batman movies out there. It's dark enough and it has enough like joy to it, and it's got a great, cast in the dog barking in the background. But it's got, with Danny DeVito playing the Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer, Catwoman, everything is like great. But here you really get that tone of the film that Schumacher is trying to do, right? It's really, he's going already hardcore with the camp Batman. And from just that intro that you get to watching him suit up and to focusing on all the right jiggly bits, to, in this one at least, the subtle nipples. But it's just like, it's entertaining, but at the same time, it's a little cheesy, and there's a lot of like wooden acting, I would say.
Can we talk about the guard who is there? Him and Batman are about to get, the boiling acid, and he's like, "Oh no, it's boiling acid!" And like that's his delivery on that line. I'm just like, was nobody like, "Hey man, dial it down just a couple notches here"?
I don't think so. I think that he wanted him to go full camp. I think he said at some point that, oh wait, he's like, "Oh no, boiling acid." He was like normal, and then all of a sudden he's like, no, you need to go cheesier than that. Come on, do some more. Because there's also that lovely scene much later on in the film that I hope you guys will talk about as well, with another guy calling out Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yeah, so we move to Wayne Enterprises next, and we get our first glimpse of Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne. We've seen him as Batman. I want to know both of your thoughts on who is the best Batman, who is the best Bruce Wayne, because there's a difference between the actor that's playing Batman and then when the actor's playing Bruce Wayne. It's like two separate roles. Kyle, where does Kilmer land on your list?
I would put Kilmer third on my list, behind both Christian Bale and Michael Keaton. Although I would go probably Keaton, Bale, Kilmer, and then bringing up the rear, as I'm sure he does most of the time, would be the dreadful performance from Batman and Robin, which would go to Mr. ER himself. I did not care for that at all, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a future episode.
Are you putting Clooney above Affleck?
Oh, I don't even include Affleck yet. Gotta get a couple more years under his belt. So, actually, I just forgot about him, being honest.
I was going to say, that was a cop-out.
I'm trying to block him out.
Like, he's got 2 movies, maybe 3.
Oh, gosh. Brian, what about you? What's your taking your list of the Batman versus Bruce Wayne top?
So if I have to rank him as Batmans, I think I'd probably put him at number 3, maybe even number 4. I actually put Affleck above him as a Batman, and Clooney, of course, being the worst of both worlds. As Bruce Wayne, I'd put him above Affleck, but it would be, Batman, it would be probably Keaton, Bale, then Affleck, then him, and then Clune Dog there at the end. And then for Bruce Wayne's, I actually like Bale's Bruce Wayne a little more than I like Keaton's Bruce Wayne. So that's the only thing that would be the switch for me.
Interesting. Very good. Kyle's IMing me something, so why don't you just go ahead and tee it up, Kyle?
Yeah, so with the next scene here, we're going to get our first clip, which I'll be inserting here on the editing, and we're going to meet Edward Nygma.
So insert clip. So we get a little take of Nygma, Edward, played by the stringy Jim Carrey. He introduces Bruce to his wacky invention that manipulates brainwaves and gets a big no, sending him to his inevitable downward spiral. But that's not all, because cue the bat signal. It's not Commissioner Gordon this time, it's Dr. Meridian, and some cheesy dialogue and noir-style music happens for some reason, because she's obsessed with Batman, like everybody in Gotham City seems to be. Brian, it's already been mentioned how the relationship between these two is pretty poorly built. It's got like a crappy base to it. Do you see any redemptive qualities to having these two characters go together?
No, because she wants to jump his bones the moment that they meet. Like she just shows, or he shows up at the first little crime scene, and she's already just ready to strip down and get down and dirty with Batman. And here it's just really terrible. Like at least with our previous two, like that's what I really loved about Batman Returns as well, is because the whole Catwoman dynamic, like that was so well played between Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton, just as Batman and Catwoman. Like it fit it really well. Here it's just like, oh yeah, I heard you prefer cats, and I'm like, okay, this is extremely cheesy.
It's very cheesy. A lot of this movie is very cheesy. But we move back to Edward, who's lost his damn mind. I don't know a better way to put it. He gets reprimanded by his boss, but instead he knocks him out because caffeine will kill you, as the stringy Jim Carrey says. He gets to test out his brain drain machine on the man, growing smarter. Edward goes full Carrey, and we see the birth of the Riddler. Kyle, the Riddler, where does he rank with your villains?
I really like the Riddler. I would probably put him behind the Joker as my favorite Batman character, or foe, I should say. The Penguin was awesome, but I think if this would have been like almost like a solo Riddler movie, like the first one was Joker, second one was Penguin. If this one was just Riddler, I would have been really happy, I think.
Interesting.
But yeah, he's super stringy, and he's the Hollywood Stretch Armstrong, as we've talked about in previous episodes, and I don't know. I actually really like his performance here in Batman Forever.
Good. I'm glad that you liked it. No rebuttal. Kyle's got nothing to say on that. That's the end of it for him. All right, we'll move along then. Fine, Kyle. So I like this part because we get to see a little bit about Two-Face's history. Obviously, Harvey Dent was featured in Batman Returns in a brief moment, but they sort of cut out what they had established earlier, and so now we've got like a new who Harvey Dent is, and we get to see some of this history. It's then that Bruce is called into the office, and Edward has put together this fancy little video alibi, faking Fred's death on camera, which I thought it looked really good. Like that's probably the best graphics in this entire movie. But it's then that Bruce receives his first riddle, and we dive further down the rabbit hole of Edward's fractured psyche, because he really is kind of like he's a lunatic. He's later called a wacko. He delivers a second riddle directly to Wayne Manor, so he's clearly got it out for Bruce Wayne. Bruce goes to visit Dr. Meridian, and we learn that she's a badass, and he's kind of a jackass, just barreling down her door because he heard noises. They could have been sex noises. We don't know, but she's just kickboxing in her office. It's there that they discuss riddles, and Bruce deducts that the sender is out to kill him. There's some banter before Bruce finally asks Dr. Meridian to the circus. Brian, Edward's falling pretty hard, pretty quickly, and we got a circus coming up. Thoughts on his downward spiral? Are you in Kyle's boat? Do you agree that they did him well?
With the Riddler, I'd say he was done for this type of movie. I think he was done well. I think that if you went with a darker Riddler, then no, I don't think it fits. If we're going with camp, then I think that this is a good portrayal of it. Like this does remind me of the old Adam West Batman series Riddler, right? Mm-hmm. He might be a little more over the top here, but I do like that they set everything up, that he puts the riddles out there and he's already playing the long con, just like the regular, quote unquote regular Riddler would be doing. So I think that they do hit the mark with the character here. It's not my favorite portrayal of him, but I still don't think that Carey did like a terrible job for it. Not in comparison to what they turned Harvey Dent into in this film.
Well, it's good that you say that, because we're back at the circus and we're introduced to the Flying Graysons and the youngest, who, of course, I always laugh because his name is Dick. Just funny, and I'm immature, but he performs some death-defying acrobatic maneuver. Celebration is cut short by none other than your favorite, Brian, Two-Face, dressed as,
Yay!
He's got his old Carnival Harker Barker outfit on, and he holds the entire circus hostage. All of them. You guys are all my hostage now, and I demand Batman shows up. I mean, for plans, it's not really like well thought out, but thankfully the Flying Graysons go to work to stop the bomb. Bruce springs into action, so we actually get to see some Bruce Wayne fighting. It's not just all saved for Batman in this movie, which I kind of like to see, because Bruce Wayne he's Batman, but he's also a badass. But it's Dick who saves the day. His family dies in the process. Now, Kyle, I've got a very serious question for you. If your family was murdered, would you become a superhero?
I would try that, or I just become Rambo and just go at him. I mean, obviously you're going to do something if somebody attacks your family, and yeah, it's tragic. I mean, he gets to the top, he feels like he saved everybody, and then he looks down and he sees all his family members laying on the ground, and Batman's just looking up at him, and it's kind of a lot to unpack in this whole scene. But I like Two-Face in this scene, because I love when he walks in, he's just like, "Welcome to a night of absolute chaos and pure justice." And he's got his little coin flipping in the air, and I feel like it kind of works for this scene here.
I'm expecting a rebuttal from Brian. I know he's got something.
So, okay, I can rebut. So the whole death of his family, that fall seemed an awfully, awfully long time. Because by the time that Dick Grayson is able to get up there, get the bomb out of the top, and then throw it down the side of it's not even like a circus tent. It's like a circus sewer like pipe. It's like where they're doing everything in. It's a very like metallic building. And then, right, when it falls in the water, then all of a sudden he's able to turn around and, they just now hit the ground. So either he's like the Flash and he doesn't know it, or like they live their life in slow-mo. And then with Two-Face, it's just there isn't enough of the inner turmoil. It seems like everything is just chaos with him constantly. He doesn't have like the whole thing like that I love about the character is there is that moral side. Everybody else that's really either voiced or played him has always played him like, okay, I have a decision to make and I've got it. And the only time that you get this is towards the end of the movie with him. Like, that coin means a lot to him. Here he just comes in, oh, I'm just gonna, oh, I'm trying to do my best Joker. Oh, Cesar Romero rolling in his grave, you know. So I just feel like it's way overacting. Like, he's got some great lines, I'll give you that, but it just seems too over the top.
Well, let me chime in with a rebuttal to that. Do you think, apparently him and Jim Carrey really clashed hard on this movie, and he really didn't like it. He doesn't like Jim Carrey's acting style. He didn't want to give in to his buffoonery. So is this him going, I'm going to put a master class of acting on here, and everything's going to be over the top to then take away from your buffoonery?
You know, he probably could have done that. I'm not going to put it past Tommy Lee Jones because he's probably a dick like that in some situations. Yeah. But, you know, I still think that that Schumacher went in and says, I need you to kind of ham it up. And he was just like, oh, you want to see ham? You got Jim Carrey? I think you're probably right. It's like, you think that's ham? This is ham. You know?
It's strange because they worked together really well on The Client. That was just the year before. And he's not over the top, and he's not hamming it up in The Client. Yeah. It's just like, I mean, like, both of them must have just been like, hey, this is what the studio wanted, so they're going to get it.
Oh, yeah. And it worked for a lot of people because it made a lot of money.
Yep, that's true.
Right, so we're back out at Wayne Manor now. Bruce extends his home to Dick, who denies the offer because he wants to kill Two-Face. He's not sad. He doesn't show any sorrow or anything like that. He's just a stone-cold murderer now. He goes from gymnast to murderer. So Bruce and Dick bond over motorcycles. It's cute. And Dick decides to stick around for a little. And then we hit a flashback to the death of Bruce's parents. I kind of like this because it shows the illustration in comparing both characters to each other. It gets hammered over and over and over and over and over that both of their parents die, so that means that they're similar. But the first time that it happens, if you're not picking up on it, it's kind of like a nice little illusion there. Alfred breaks him from his trance. Boom, bat signal is hit, and we're on the streets of Gotham. Batman's been followed by some goons. When I love this part, but Two-Face is hidden as like a little cart old lady, and he just pulls out a rocket launcher, and he just fires at the Batmobile, and he misses. He misses with a rocket launcher, and he kills his henchman. At this point, I think he's killed 3 or 4 of his own goons.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of like, oh, who cares?
Yeah, he just does not care. So I love this part, and Brian, I am so excited to hear you talk about this, but the chase intensifies, and Batman escapes by literally driving up a wall. Can we make this shit up?
It's honestly, it's kind of cool. Again, if you're in with the camp, that's very fun. Like that whole sequence, and I don't discount a lot of the action scenes in this movie because I think that those are relatively cool. It's most of the acting that we get, and the fact though that it's just like this, they're really like forcing the bat gadgets down your throat in this, because he has a gadget for every fucking thing, and everything is perfectly fired at the right moment. You know, he can drive fast enough so the rocket launcher completely misses him. He can fire the cable at the perfect time, and then it perfectly lifts him up to go on the side and then pull him up while everybody's just like, oh, I guess I'm going to crash into a wall here.
Oh, man, it's too much. Like, I remember the scene so vividly from when I saw this as a kid, and I still just like, he's driving up a wall. I'm just surprised that, you know, they're not like showing close-ups of people in their windows and everybody's like in awe and shock. And it's like, whoa!
Well,
it's like Three Stooges.
Maybe it's a metaphor for how Jim Carrey was treating Tommy Lee Jones in this film, just driving him up a wall.
I like that a lot.
Can we also talk about how every single Batman movie we need to talk about Batman's parents fucking dying? Like, every Batman movie has to do it for some reason. Even when Batman's not the main character in the movie, we still do it. Like, that, you said it yourself, Justin, it is hammered into your throat how much, hey, guess what? They're just alike. Guess what? They're just alike. Guess what? It's like, come on. Like, I don't need to see another death scene of his parents again.
I mean, I get what they're trying for, and especially since this movie is geared towards a younger audience, an audience that may not have seen the Tim Burton versions, and they want it to stand on its own 2 feet, but it's way too much.
How cool would it have been if they would have used the old footage of Jack Nicholson's character shooting him, and we would have had a nice little flashback instead of like reshooting it? Like that would have just made too much sense. Like
it would have been great.
Yeah.
I think that they tried to make it look like Jack Nicholson's character,
right.
but and the thing is that this is the Tim Burton Batmaniverse, if you want, whatever, however you want to call it. So we should already. I guess maybe that's my point. Is we should already know what he's gone through. You know, he could have just maybe been thinking like, "Huh, we're kind of alike." Yeah, and then fucking moved on.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Very much agreed. So we're back to Nigma, who's trying to find an alter ego for himself, eventually landing on the Riddler. And as stringy as he is, he crashes into Two-Face's secret lair, which is, I personally have always thought was really cool, the way it's broken off into the 2 different parts of who he is and the chaos and the order that, as you mentioned, Brian, is supposed to exist in his characterization, which isn't fully there. But anyways, the Riddler's stringy as hell, and he proposes that they kill the Batman together. Riddler unveils his box and his plan to discover and destroy Batman. Of course, we see Two-Face flip a coin to see if he will work with the Riddler or kill him. And of course, the coin flip goes well for the Riddler. So good for the bad guys.
That's right.
This is probably the next scene is probably.
Hold on, you're cutting out, Justin. Hold on.
So are you.
Okay, seems to be good to go.
Okay. So now we go to probably one of the best scenes in the movie, and that's of Dick doing his laundry with martial arts for some reason.
Terrible.
Love it. But there's more chaos continuing with Riddler and Two-Face before Bruce gets yet another riddle. The third box becomes the 3D box becomes all the rage in Gotham, and Riddler soaks up all the juicy brainwaves. So we have a little bit of some back-to-back scenes here that show a little bit of the characterization and building of who the Riddler and Two-Face are together. And I kind of wonder if they would actually be friends in the comic verse, like the way that they are here. But they're pretty chummy. And Kyle, I need you to tell me that this is how you do your laundry.
If I could only do my laundry like that, that would be amazing. But no, with my terrible back, I'm like, I'm like putting stuff down, and yeah, I can't flip stuff with broomsticks and everything else. But to back up for a second, can we talk about Sugar and Spice a little bit? I feel like we passed over a couple of really cool characters here.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Drew Barrymore here.
That's right. It is Drew Barrymore in a fascinating role. I dare you to name the other.
We're losing you.
Other girl is Spice. Boom.
Spice.
No, right, but who's the actress that played her?
It is Debbie Mazar of Entourage fame.
There
Love
you go.
that show. But yeah, I mean, Drew did like some of these like early to mid 90s roles. She did a bunch of these like really small parts. Like we just talked about her in Wayne's World 2 as, I forget her character name. It was like Schmirgan, Schmarger. Like, I don't know. At one point, Wayne's like, Schwing, Schmirgan. Like, I don't know. She did a bunch of these smaller roles, and then a year later she does Scream, and then she started to like hit it big again with some large roles that carried her through like the last like 15 years. But it's cool to see her here in kind of a small role. She only has a couple lines, and yeah, and then Debbie Mazar is awesome too. So she was perfect as the spice to Drew's sugar.
So which meal would you eat?
Oh, it'd be the sugar. We've talked a lot about Drew. in previous episodes. That's a no-brainer. That's nothing against Miss Debbie Mazar. It's just I love Drew Barrymore.
I don't know. I'd kind of go with that black roasted pig. That was pretty tasty looking.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, the creamy, dreamy lemon souffle didn't look too bad, but but yeah, I might go for the roasted pig too.
Well, thankfully, Two-Face gets them both.
That's true. That's true because he's both. What did he call him? He's like you're both summer and winter in one, and then Two-Face is like like pulls a gun out on him and he's like, we're getting too close here.
I do like that scene though with Jim Carrey coming in and how he kind of works around Two-Face's chaotic nature and how he's able to, like, he's moving around the room and he's setting everybody up and everybody's just kind of following. Like, that is a really good, I feel like, representation of what that character would be around the other character. Because Batman characters always seem like they'll get together, they don't really like each other, but to kill the Batman or get rid of the Batman, they'll work together in some way, shape, or form. And this, I felt like, was a pretty good way of doing it. It's just that only one villain is actually established in Gotham at this time.
Very true. I like to compare, because I'm more of a Marvel person myself. So essentially, the Batman villains are the Sinister Six of the DC world, and it's the same concept with them.
Yeah, pretty much. I would definitely give that, like, the main big Batman villains that you find, that would probably be the best representation if you had to compare.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun stuff. So moving along, Dick schemes on Alfred and discovers the Batcave and Bruce's secret identity. He does this extremely acrobatically, but very easily. He just has a hunch that there's a secret door. So he follows it and finds out. Then we smash over to Bruce, and he's discovering his repressed memories through a visit with the good doctor. He then finds out about her obsession with Batman, which I thought was a little weird because she had all the newspaper clippings. Bruce is turned off, and he wants to leave, but then quickly is like boner Bruce and like turns to passion. But it's Alfred who breaks off the beaking and informs Bruce that Dick has gone joyriding in the car. Which car? The car.
Which car?
It's the car.
The other car. And this is a perfect. Go ahead, Brian.
I would say she's not like weirded out that he's got the only video watch like there is in all of Gotham. Like, he just goes over the corner and he's like, what? And she's just like, oh yeah, video watch.
How about them predicting the Apple Watch 20-something years ahead of time?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. But I want to jump in because this is going to actually be our next scene here as Dick jumps out of the Batmobile. So let's watch this next clip. Take it away, JD.
Yeah, so there, in the clip we see, which I personally love this scene. This is probably the most awesomest scene in the movie for me. Dick discovering the neon painted gangs, and they're just, what are they doing? They're just randomly harassing some chick. They're just like pushing at her and like prodding her. And it turns into this awesome fight scene, and I look at this completely. But Batman goes up and what does he do? He throws a hissy fit. He's pissing and he's moaning and he's just being a little errand wearing biatch. But that's just me, Brian. What's your take on the evolution of Dick Grayson and the scene that we just saw?
So this Dick Grayson kind of seems like an amalgamate of a bunch of Robins together, and I really do like this fight scene because I love the use of color, and I love that everything is neon, and I love how even with everybody kind of fighting everybody off, it looks beautiful. Like, maybe the moves aren't the best in the world, but the way that the scene moves and ebbs and flows and the colors are really, really cool. This Chris O'Donnell was supposed to be this big thing that never became a big thing. And I mean, it's okay. It's just, I don't know. There's a couple of good scenes for Robin, folding clothes withstanded. But other than the fight scene, he's meh. That's all I can describe him as. Like it's cool. Like there's a reference in a little bit of other Robins, but he just doesn't feel like one of the Robins. He just feels like some weird creation that they just kind of rushed together. Oh, we need to add Chris O'Donnell to this film because he's the next big star.
Right, which is exactly what they do in Batman and Robin with Alicia Silverstone.
Yep.
But we'll get to that a completely another day. But for the meantime, we're going to head back to the Batcave, and we get to see Bruce schooling Dick on the basics of revenge. Because, of course, Bruce is... He knows... I get that the character Bruce Wayne knows about revenge and knows a little bit about the pain that comes with it. But, he goes on to implore the youngster not to do it. And he broods... And he's just so angry, and he denies the youngster from wanting to be his partner, and he heads to Edward Nygma's Big Bash. I love this Big Bash, watching Bruce and Edward match wits. If you notice, the whole time Edward copies Bruce's mannerisms and dress to the point where every time Bruce puts on his glasses or takes them off, Jim Carrey does the same thing. And it's just it's hilarious to see Jim Carrey oh no, the glasses come off now, because he's trying to be Bruce Wayne. And I don't know, I like the little mannerisms in this scene. Kyle, did you pick up on that? Do you have any thoughts about how Edward is sort of mimicking Bruce Wayne?
Yeah, he's not only is he mimicking him, but then he's kind of poking and prodding him too. He's like, why don't you just admit you're too afraid to take my test? And then he's going after his girl. He takes her out on the dance floor. It's it's a pretty elaborate little setup that he has here, because he knows if he can take his girl and kind of prod at him a little bit and pick at him to want to look at the device, that he can set him up for what's going to happen, which is Bruce goes off on his own and Sugar shows him how to shut it off, and then he goes in the back and she slides it back in and turns it on, and they're going to get to see inside his brainwaves, which is pretty neat. And then, of course, we have Two-Face out of nowhere just kicking down the door, and he's like, it's a good old-fashioned stick-up. It's like, God damn it.
Why are you reading such a good scene?
I mean, it really was up to that point. I thought it was off to a good start. And then he just comes in and wrecks it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's what we have next is we see Bruce in the box. He's been schemed by Edward. Two-Face interrupts the whole party, just ruins this great party. Obviously, he's just trying to lure out Batman, who arrives and just instantly goes to work on the goons. I love all the goons in this movie, and none of them really, I think, even land a punch on Batman. But, of course, as Two-Face and his plots tend to be, this is just a distraction to lure Batman down a dark tunnel and blow him up. Thankfully, Batman's outfitted with a special cape and doesn't get hurt. Like you said, Brian, he's got a gadget for every little thing. I especially love... We'll get to the gadget that he uses to kill Two-Face, and that's my favorite of the entire movie.
It's definitely
Oh,
it's definitely an interesting setup for the whole thing. There's the one guy in the audience before they run away, and I think it's also the same guy that's in the beginning of the film that's in that was the security guard. And I don't know if he's lost his hearing aid now completely because Batman had to use it to open up the safe, right?
Of course.
But it sounds terrible when he yells, "It's Batman!" It's really awful. And I feel terrible for laughing so much at it, but it's so out of place for the whole thing. And that shielding cape, out of nowhere to protect him from the fires. It's just terrible.
But Two-Face does get the upper hand and buries Batman in a ton of rubbish, only to be saved by Dick, who now wears his acrobat outfit and saves the day. Do you think there's any credence to Dick saving Batman? Is there any redemptive qualities to how they filmed this scene and how they pulled this one off, Brian?
No, No, I don't. I just like, okay, I get it. He's coming in and he's trying to prove, and we got to make sure that we get Robin, and he's got to come. Batman doesn't trust anybody. Oh, but he saved his life. I guess I can trust him. Or both our parents died. I'm waiting for him to turn Vin Diesel and start talking about how he's family or something.
Living life a quarter mile at a time. But no, I one of the things I thought was kind of absurd is we see all this rubble like pile on Batman. Like it seems like it's like several feet of rubble, and then Robin reaches in like 2 inches and like pulls his hand up. And I'm like, can we, guys, attention to detail? Can we do a little bit better here? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of lacking attention to detail in this film, but we get to move on to watching Batman creep on Dr. Meridian for some seduction. So this scene's very passionate and very creepy, in my opinion. But unfortunately for Batman, Meridian is just magically not interested anymore. She spurns his advances, and we get to see Two-Face and the Riddler put the pieces together about Bruce Wayne and who. Shit, I lost my place. Okay, so we see Two-Face and the Riddler start to put the pieces together about Bruce Wayne as they go through his psyche and his brainwaves. And at that same time, Bruce is going through his own midlife crisis and thinking about retiring from being Batman. He doesn't want to do it anymore. Doesn't really seem like the best of decisions, but Bruce and Meridian go through some more flirtation and they explore Bruce's psyche. It's kind of neat to learn a little bit more about Bruce's mental state and get some insight on why he does what he does and the giant flying bat that's coming at him. It's kind of a beautiful scene until ding dong, it's Halloween magically, and Two-Face and the Riddler spoil the party. The duo or trio, if you count Two-Face as two people, I don't even know at this point, create havoc in the house. Bruce is beaten up bad, Meridian is captured. Geez, that's a lot to unpack, but Kyle, tell me, could you have figured out Batman's true identity as easily as everyone else has in this movie?
I mean, I feel like in the first movie it was pretty obvious as well, but I mean, even in the second one, it's like nobody can ever figure it out, even though he kind of looks the same, it sounds the same. I mean, she's obsessed with Batman. She should have figured out it was Bruce Wayne pretty quickly, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I did think it was interesting. I like that it was Halloween. I thought that was a clever way to get into Wayne Manor. So I like the use of that with the kids and Two-Face and Riddler kind of having some fun. But yeah, I mean the flashbacks are they're so unnecessary because we know so much about his background. It's like they just keep going back to this damn well, and it's so unnecessary in this movie. I feel like every time it happens, it's just like, we know, dude. We got it. Like, he's got issues.
He does have issues.
I mean, how could you not know it's Batman with those giant lips and that giant jaw that he's got whenever, he's covered from down on his nose, and all she had to do was kiss him once. The first time that they kissed, she'd be like, oh yeah, it's like kissing Batman. Wait a second.
Who would have money for all these expensive gadgets around here?
I mean, he's got a video watch. Who else has one? Batman had one.
Right. Well, JD, let me jump in real quick because we've got another clip here as the Riddler goes down into the Batcave and it's going to blow some shit up. Let's watch this clip. Poof.
Good clip. So watching Riddler blow everything up, I personally am not like crazy about this scene because I think it's a little too comical. It's too much camp. Watching him do that, throw that pitch, and then adjust his crotch is something I never want to see.
Oh, well, you see plenty of his crotch from that outfit that he's wearing. That leotard, his ball sack is right in your face.
Yeah, I can do without that personally. What about you, Kyle?
Well, I don't think Schumacher could, so it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So So we move on next, and we see Bruce solving Riddler's riddles, deciding to pursue Nigma as he breaks down in amazing form, showing off his brilliance, which I don't know that I would have been able to solve that riddle, but Bruce Wayne does. And we get to see Robin fully decked out in his official outfit with help from Alfred's tailor. I wonder what kind of tailor actually does those kinds of costumes, because that was pretty quick, and it's obviously much more tactical than wearing his acrobat outfit. But they pull planes, trains, and automobile, and they go by water and sea to get to Riddler's Nutty Island hideout. This thing is nutty. They have a harrowing approach. They play some Battleship. Robin's almost killed, but he's not. And Batman's almost killed, but he's not. And Holy Rusted Metal, they make it to the island.
I remember laughing so hard in the theater at that line because it's so stupid, but it's so hilarious. It's the best line in the whole movie. I don't
Holy
care.
rusted metal, Batman! He's like, huh?
It's metal, and it's rusted,
Oh,
and it's holy. Oh,
he just says, oh.
So,
yeah, you can't tell if he's surprised or not because that's Val Kilmer's acting for the entire fucking movie.
Oh, yeah.
I love you. Oh, Robin, my parents. Ugh.
I wish I was on an indie set. This fucking sucks. All right.
yeah, that's Val Kilmer for you. But meanwhile, Robin faces off with Two-Face, and he really kind of makes quick work of Two-Face here. But thankfully, Two-Face always has a trick up his sleeve, which is the one thing that I kind of noticed in rewatching this is there's always two aspects to anything that Two-Face does, whether it's like there's part one of the plan and then part two of a plan. So part one of the plan being to fight Robin, part two to just convince Robin not to kill him and sort of guilt him out of it, and then pull a gun and take him captive. So I kind of like that scene. Batman is going to go face off with the Riddler, and I got to think there's going to be something big happening soon. But if Riddler and Batman go toe to toe, Riddler, he stands no chance, does he?
Oh, no chance at all. Bruce Wayne's gonna whoop that ass from here to Tuesday. He's gonna give him a stone cold stunner, and that's gonna be it.
Can you imagine watching Batman give a stone cold stunner?
That would be amazing.
That would be insane. Oh my gosh.
All right, let's get rid of what's his face for the Batman and just replace it with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
If you want me to give Two-Face a stone cold stunner, give me a hell yeah.
I definitely think we're onto something here, guys. So we got Batman, we got Riddler, we got a standoff, and Two-Face joins the party. We have this big Bond villain-esque explanation of the Riddler's master plan, because of course we do. He's captured both Robin and Meridian, and he pits their survival against one another to see who Batman will save. Being a badass, Batman instead destroys the box, devolves Riddler, but not before he can release the trapdoor on both cages and sending them to their, what does he call it, watery graves?
Mm-hmm.
But Batman again swiftly jumps into action, dramatically saves both, and Two-Face again shows up with the upper hand. Now this is my favorite bat weapon in the entire movie. Two-Face flips his coin into the air, and Batman apparently went to his grandma and asked for a handful of coins because he just throws these coins in the air at Two-Face, who stumbles over the edge. Boom, he's dead. Goodbye, Harvey Dent.
Hey, pocket change. Woo!
I feel like they missed out.
It was like $20 worth of coins.
And how did he get the exact coins that he needed to fool him too?
Right?
Like it could have been just like a handful of pennies that he threw up there. And maybe that still would have not cost him so much and still confused Two-Face.
He could have
Here's
thrown a
my
rock at him.
pogs. Ugh.
Yeah.
Bunch of slammers at him. Just pogs.
No, don't throw the Alf one.
The 8-ball, no.
Alf is back in Pog form.
Damn right. Way to go, House.
So I don't know. I think it's hilarious because he's got like little tactical pouches, but he doesn't have like bat pockets necessarily. And we would hear the jingling and jangling of this change the entire time. It mystifies me, Kyle. I don't know if you have any thoughts before we head towards the final coming scenes.
I hope that there is some footage of him. Like he already has him when he's talking to the Riddler in the previous scene, and Jim Carrey at one point just like, Can we cut? What is the jingling in his pocket?" And Schumacher's like, "Well, we had to give him 14 coins to throw at Two-Face, so can we take him out for a moment?" Like, it's too much. Yeah, it's cheesy, man. What else can you say?
I think he had the change purse was in his coin slot. If you catch my drift there, he just had to reach down. There was so much focus on it in his getting dressed again scene that's where it had to be.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
Mm.
So next we see Batman confront a completely unhinged Riddler. He hauls his ass off to Arkham Asylum, which I'm always happy to see when they include the asylum in the movies. Edward claims to know Batman's secret identity, only to reveal himself as a complete psychopath, or wacko as Meridian calls him, which I think is the scientific term. There's a kiss because there needs to be a kiss, and then for some reason Batman and Robin run towards the screen while silhouetted by the bat signal.
Kiss.
Finally, cue the good music.
Oh, sorry.
Roll it. That's all she wrote for Batman Forever.
I think we get U2 first, right?
It is U2 first.
Yeah.
Hold me, thrill me, kiss me, kill me.
Now that song was both nominated for a Grammy and a Razzie. And I could kind of see why.
Hard to do, but good on them.
So
if only they would have been there to accept both.
There we go. Brian, how does this hold up against other Batman films that you've seen? More recently rewatched? Are you swayed at all? Are you still in the same boat of just the trash that Schumacher has created?
I'm still the same way I felt. I think it's not as bad as Batman and Robin, okay? Like, hands down, that's the worst one. That I remember when the first scene with Arnold and the guys on the skates are coming out, it looked like it was a bad Power Ranger episode, and I was singing Go Go Power Rangers in the theater as they were fighting. Like, this doesn't reach those heights. Like, the set design, I think, is really cool. I think that they really captured that feel of the city of Gotham. Like, that one fight scene is good. I think some of the stunts are really well done. But it really comes down to the characters. And this is one of the worst Batmans that we've got. Val Kilmer he really sounded like he didn't give a shit. And even reading some of the trivia, he really didn't give a crap. He went 2 weeks without talking to Joel Schumacher while on set itself. It's like, you know, and he doesn't, like, the thing is like Keaton was really good at separating the two and so was Bill to an extent of here's Bruce Wayne and here's Batman. And they're two different types. It's like how Tom Holland does Spider-Man, right? He has a really good Peter Parker, and then when he's Spider-Man, he's more like Spider-Man than, I think, to me, than some of the other guys that have played him, you know. And that part gets ruined for me. It's not a very good Robin. It's an over-the-top Two-Face. It's great that he's chaotic, but even though they try to put in little things like you were saying earlier, Justin, where he always has two things that he's thinking of whenever the scenes are set up, but he never like reflects, like the good side never really comes out. It's always like a bad guy. He's constantly just a bad guy. And he's always like, he's a very tragic character because he's doing the stuff he's doing because nobody wants to deal with Two-Face anymore. You know, nobody wants Harvey Dent. So I'm just going to be Two-Face. And it, you know, Nicole Kidman is just wasted in the movie. That character is just, ugh. Oh, I'm obsessed with Batman. Oh, no, I really love Bruce Wayne. Oh, hey, you're Batman too, so I've loved you all along. Yeah. And Jim Carrey's the only highlight. Like, he may be still a little over the top, but still may be in that Ace Ventura range. I mean, this is sometime after The Mask, right? And so he's still got that cartoon character, but I think it fits the Riddler for the type of Riddler that Schumacher wanted. So, like, I don't mind the scene where he's destroying the Batcave. I think it's because everything so far has been so dumb. Yeah, the baseball thing is stupid, but there's fun in that scene, and it's fun to watch it as an audience. And, you know, so it's not my favorite Batman, but it's not the worst of the worst.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. For me, when I remember this movie, it comes to a lot to the marketing that they did and the action figures that came out, and the Two-Face figure actually came with a copy of the coin. So I definitely loved having a coin when this movie came out. We would flip it all the time and pretend like making decisions like Two-Face did, but maybe I'm just a psychopath.
You just need to have that coin around you all the time, don't you? I see it there in the background, sitting on the shelf.
Yes, there it is.
Well, I want to chime in and kind of expand on this a little bit because we talked about this in the teaser trailer a little bit, Brian. That apparently a Schumacher cut of this movie exists that is a lot darker,
Oh
with
wow!
much different tone, and is like edited and ready to be watched. Because apparently he's maybe shown it to some friends, and it was confirmed by several people in the industry. I mean, this is the guy that brought us St. Elmo's Fire, The Lost Boys, Falling Down. In between the Batman movies, he made A Time to Kill and 8mm between those two movies. It's not that he's a bad director, so I don't know who to put the blame on. Is it Warner Brothers because they were pissed off at the last movie because it cost them their McDonald's deal and they pulled out of Batman Returns? And they're like, hey, you have to make it this way. And then they came in and, man, one of my biggest gripes with this movie is I think the score is awful. It's too cheesy.
Yeah. And you get the same thing in Batman and Robin. And it's funny because Tim Burton produced this movie. So he's part of the list of producers. And maybe that cut is what he was going for. And then, like you said, it's probably the studio heads that went in there and said, no, we need something that's more marketable to the kids. We need to get that McDonald's money back, that Happy Meal toy money back, and that's what this ended up being. And The Lost Boys is one of my favorite films, ever.
Me too.
And I love Schumacher for it. And these two films are just, it's a little bit of a taint on his legacy, But are they fun to laugh at with a bunch of people? Oh, sure, it's great. It's one of those movies where you get a bunch of people together, talk shit about it, and you'll have a good time.
I almost feel like in Batman and Robin, he was just like, fuck it. We're going to show more ass, more nipples, and if you thought Tommy Lee Jones was over the top, wait until I get Arnold in this snowsuit.
And Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy.
Oh, yes.
That's way over the top too.
My son loves her, by the way. He had a thing for Poison Ivy for a long time. So
what's that red hair?
It must be. I don't know. But I actually do have a list of interesting facts, JD. I don't know if you prepared one.
I didn't. I know that's your thing, so I've let you do the interesting facts.
Okay, well, let's get to some of them. We talked about the relationship with Tommy Lee and Jim Carrey. Apparently, at one point, they actually had almost like a coming to blows moment where Jim Carrey went over and was like, "Hey, pal, how's your day going? What's the deal?" And Tommy Lee Jones just got in his face and was like, "You're my deal. I can't stand your acting. I think you're terrible, and I am very upset that you're part of this movie." And the tension was so bad that Schumacher said he would never work with any of them again, which he broke for the number 23 with Jim Carrey. But, and like you said, Brian, I think he's the only good thing about the movie, to be honest. So, are you surprised at all to hear that it was that bad on set?
It's weird to think that it would be that bad because honestly, on screen, Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones actually had good chemistry together, right? Especially that scene where he breaks into Two-Face's, hideout to convince him that he needs to work with him. I like the way they play off each other in that scene. And that would show you how great of an actor Tommy Lee Jones is, because even though he hates your guts, he's still giving out a great performance alongside of you. So that surprises me a lot. But, with the way that Jim Carrey is, it also doesn't surprise me because there was that documentary that went about Man on the Moon where he really went into Andy Kaufman, and he was that thing's an amazing watch, and it's very like frustrating at the same time because the people on set just could not handle what he was doing because he was method acting, and maybe he did something similar here. Who knows?
That could definitely be true. Let's talk a little bit about Michael Keaton. Obviously, a lot of people were bummed not to see him back for Batman Forever. So before deciding not to don the cape and do a third movie, Keaton reportedly met with Joel Schumacher and declined to join the project after deciding that he did not like the direction in which Schumacher was looking to take the franchise. And he basically said to lighten up the movie and brighten it up and be a cartoon was of no interest to me. So, JD, what do you think about how different would this movie be if they had put enough zeros on the end of the check where Michael Keaton wouldn't turn it down?
I'm in the same boat with both of you, and I think that Keaton does an excellent job as Batman and as Bruce Wayne. I don't hate Val Kilmer's performance as much as apparently you guys do. I think that he does a decent job with what he's given to work with, especially with the direction apparently that they have. But it's a different movie with Keaton because he's a different Bruce Wayne.
Okay. Well, I know one person that would agree with you. Co-creator of Batman, Bob Kane, thought Val Kilmer was the best interpretation among all the actors to play Batman up to the time of his death. He never saw Bale or Affleck, but he thought Kilmer was the best.
Wow.
Interesting.
I mean,
And
he's
the
even
creator.
Is that he did say live action, not voice acting?
He said of I believe it says of any.
That hurts my heart.
Yeah, that's tough. Speaking of the other direction here, Tim Burton was at one point supposed to make the third movie, and they were going to move forward, and he was going to have the Riddler as the only villain that they were planning on using, which we talked about. And the idea of Two-Face did not come up until Schumacher joined the project, and so I actually love the idea more of it just being a Riddler-driven movie, because I think it simplifies everything and gives them more time to build instead of cram, let's get all this stuff in here. So let's talk about some of the other casting choices. These are always really fun to look at. So before Chris O'Donnell was cast, Mark Wahlberg, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jude Law, Ewan McGregor, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, Toby Stevens, and Scott Speedman were all being considered for the role of Robin at some point.
Scott Speedman? Underworld Scott Speedman?
I think so.
Oh. I could have seen
one of the two Coreys.
Yeah. I could have seen Matt Damon do it. And there was one towards the beginning too that I could have been like, Mark Wahlberg could have been okay. I mean, but that was back when he really wasn't a very good actor, and even now he's much better than he was when he started.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, imagine being who was the casting director that was like, DiCaprio? I don't know. I don't really see it. Like, what? How did they miss out on that one? And then let's talk about a couple of the guys that went for the role of Batman here, Bruce Wayne. Daniel Day-Lewis, Ralph Fiennes, William Baldwin and then Val Kilmer were the four top choices for Schumacher. And
I almost thought you were going to say Ralph Macchio for a second.
Yeah, he should have been in the Robin cast.
He would make a great Robin.
He would. I would have totally gone with that.
Can you imagine Daniel Day-Lewis in this role? This movie would have been totally different. There's no way. He would have been like, listen, we're going to rewrite the script. I'm going to live in a bat cave, literally, for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And
he would have been out there solving fucking crimes, stopping supervillains. He would have really gone into this role.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last here, a couple choices for the Riddler. So both Steve Martin and Robin Williams turned down the role of the Riddler. Williams was a little slighted by not getting picked for the Joker role originally in the 1989 Batman because apparently they used him as bait. When Jack Nicholson talks kind of paused and they're like, okay, well, we're going to go with Robin Williams. And then he signed it was 2 films for $90 million. He got the deal of the century. He's not even in the second one and got paid for it. But in 1993, Robin Williams stated that he was in talks for the role and was really enthusiastic about it, and then decided to pass. And then he also, not only did he try out for the Joker role in the original Batman, but once again, he went for the Joker role in The Dark Knight, which I did not know about, and lost it to Heath Ledger.
Oh, wow.
So apparently, I know he's a big comic book fan because we talked about it in our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode, how he was really excited about Judith Hoag getting the role of April and basically groomed her for it. It was oh, you got to read the comics and this is the character and blah, blah, blah. And then anyway, Steve Martin decided to decline because the death of his good friend John Candy had just happened, and he was going through a divorce and was just not in the mood to make any movies. So, Brian, do you see this movie being any different if there's a Robin Williams or Steve Martin?
Robin Williams is the one where I would not see as a good Joker.
Yeah.
If it was maybe a little more of a serious Joker, then maybe I might, because he does, or he did, may he rest in peace. Those serious roles that he did extremely well. 1 Hour Photo, his role, his portrayal of that character is so good. Insomnia, he's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Good Will Hunting, so good. So I would have been cool, if you had a darker Riddler, I think he might have fit that. But this more cartoony thing, is he going to play it like he plays Genie? I don't think that really fits, Jim Carrey kind of is the perfect role for this. I don't see Steve Martin doing anything different that would make me be wowed by the role. No one has really played the Riddler live action since, and I think it's hard because people are going to compare them to the way Jim Carrey did it.
Sure. I agree. And instead of playing the Riddler, he decided to do a little movie called Jumanji. What year is it? Alan Parrish. Which on my trip to Montana, we got out, we got into the airport. It literally looked like an airport hadn't been changed since 1980. Okay. And I walk into the lobby, and that was my first line to my wife. I go, "What year is it?" And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "It's from Jumanji. Shut the fuck up." So that's it, man. That's the interesting facts. Gosh, there's so many things we could talk about with this movie, but go ahead, Brian.
The one thing I wanted to ask you about was, how do you feel about the buyout of Billy D. Williams? Because Billy D. Williams was Harvey Dent for both Batman and Batman Returns, made small roles, but he was promised that he would become Two-Face at some point. And so for them to be able to bring Tommy Lee Jones in, he had to be bought out of his contract so that Tommy Lee Jones could do it. Would you feel that Billy D. Williams would be a good Two-Face?
He would have been much better, because that character, he played it a lot more straight and not over the top in the first ones. And listen, this is Hollywood racism at its best. He was removed from this project for almost no reason and gone with a different choice. The same thing with Marlon Wayans. He was cast as Robin, and as soon as Schumacher came on, he was completely taken off the list. And it's just okay. The 2 black actors you had were attached and then automatically removed when another director took over. Yep. Seems very, very sketchy to me. And I think they did Billy D. Williams a huge disservice. And I thought it was cool that, he got a chance to be in the Lego Batman movie and voice Harvey Dent there. But, what can you do? It's been 23 years. So between that and Lego Batman, it really screwed him.
Man, so he could have come out as Two-Face with his smooth Colt 45.
Yeah, and I really like him in the original Batman as Harvey Dent. He's awesome.
It's great. I really wish that he had been given the chance to actually be more than just a voice.
I mean, instead, he had 2 TV movies in 1985. So imagine missing out on that payday to do a TV movie called Falling for You in Triple Cross instead of Batman Forever with
It's
a
not
$100
just a
million
double cross.
budget. It's a triple cross. But yeah, JD, anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm just trying to picture Billy D as Two-Face. I imagine he would be more aligned with the cartoon version of Two-Face because they would have done a better job of, and they had done a good job of establishing who Harvey Dent was. And I think that the new Nolan trilogy did a better job, but I still think that they wasted Two-Face. They put him to bed way too early with Aaron Eckhart's performance, but I don't know. I don't dislike Tommy Lee Jones in this because I think he's a good actor, and there's signs of greatness that he has, and there's moments where you're just like, this is Tommy Lee Jones from The Fugitive with makeup on.
He basically plays the same role in the movie Cobb too. He's just an asshole in that one. It's very Two-Face-ish the way he acts, but no, Tommy Lee Jones is great. I mean, it's not like he was like, hey, get me on this movie and kick Billy D off. Like, obviously, this call came from somebody else. So,
yeah. Well, I think it was his son, right? His son wanted him to play Two-Face because he loved the character.
Yeah.
And he was probably the one that called in to Schumacher and says, get my dad the job.
There we go.
All right, man. Well, one last time, Brian, we want to thank you for coming on the show and give you a chance to plug your podcast, what you got coming up. And I don't know if that's a cat that's making its way onto your screen, but I see something on the left.
Yeah, she's back there eating her food while I'm finishing up the end of the episode. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. You guys can check out, of course, Terrible Terror Podcast. The next episode I'm doing is The People Under the Stairs. I'm going from a really ridiculous film in a movie called Hemoglobin, which is about ancestral mutants that are hermaphrodites. It's a whole thing. It's terrible. It's got Rutger Hauer in it.
Of course.
But yeah, it's a podcast available on all podcasting platforms, Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, and everything else that's out there. Follow the podcast on Twitter, T_T_podcast. And then It Be Like That podcast do with Pat. And we just kind of do a little bit of everything, talk about what's kind of going on, play games, do little things like that. And, we're already talking about for that podcast, we want to try to get everybody on the SIT network to come and do an episode with us. Where we have, I'm going to talk to Pat about it this weekend, but we'll probably start setting up and getting everybody out there, doing like a kind of a rapid fire question, have a set of questions for everybody, and just kind of a check-in with how all the podcasts and networks, how they're doing, and then also kind of play a little game along with everybody as they come on. So, but we'll definitely be reaching out to you guys, and this is probably going to be the first time that Pat's going to hear about it, but he'll hear about it again when I talk to him on Saturday.
Yeah, he'll let us know. He'll probably correct us on a few things on the episode. Yep. This time it'll be completely your fault, JD, since you did the notes. So enjoy that feedback.
Absolutely.
And of course, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, YouTube. If you want to watch the videos, you're going to be able to see this on YouTube as we break it down. And we want to thank you guys for listening to another episode. So let us know on Twitter, what do you want to hear next month? We got a few days before we decide officially as we record our Shoot the Manure episode for August. So if you have any great ideas, let us know on Twitter or Instagram. And that's it, man. Let's go ahead and we'll climb into the Batmobile. I don't know if it's got room for 3. It might just be one row, but we're going to go ahead and light the fire, kick it back to 2020, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. See ya. No clever joke at the end, huh, JD?
Not today. Not for you, bastard.